Well, good afternoon. It is June 22nd, the first full day of summer 2019. Summer solstice was yesterday at 11:54 a.m. Eastern Time, and we're still here in Maine to take a look at this gigantic 6 by 10 foot vegetable garden and see what progress we have made. It's been a cool and wet time frame. In fact, starting to rain right now, even though there's blue sky up above, and you can see from some of the things that I've shown you that there's still signs of late spring, even though we've gotten into late June. Lilacs are still in bloom. The peonies have yet to open. They've opened in other places, like over in Vermont and in downtown Kennebunk, but here out in the port, closer to the ocean where it's cooler, not yet. And still, it's getting to summer, but I'm going to say that we've had maybe one day of 75 degrees or more. It may hit 75 today, but it's been really up and down. No summer weather at all, really. Just some nice spring weather and some chilly weather. The day before yesterday was cloudy and rainy and 59 degrees for a high temperature. So that's a little brutal this time of year when you want your plants to be growing. So let's take a look at what we've got. It's, as you know, there's not a whole lot here. Some of the progress has been good and some of it has not, and so let's take a look. So first we have tomatoes, and I planted 6 early girl plants, and they're doing quite well actually. They were very small when they went in, if you remember, and here you can see we finally got some blossoms coming on them, and they're looking healthy. They're probably going to need to be staked up or caged or something fairly soon, and so we'll get to that. And then next to that we have peppers, and these I believe are new ace peppers that are supposed to turn red. We had 6 plants that we put out. We are now down to 5. We lost one, which I'll get to in a moment, but they're doing well, and they are about to bloom as well. Not quite blooming yet, but almost, and hopefully we'll see something coming on those relatively soon. And then we have broccoli, and a little bit of a disappointment here. We had 6 plants, we've lost 2. These 2 right here are quite healthy and good, but this one I came out yesterday and it was looking like it had been blown over, and I straightened it up and firmed up the soil, but it's wilty. I think something is getting at the roots, and then this one is looking good. So we're really down to 3 healthy broccoli plants. Next to the broccoli we have some butterhead lettuce that we bought as plants, and 4 out of the 6 have survived, and they're really doing quite well. They're filling out very nicely, and they'll be ready to harvest pretty soon. Major disappointment on seed germination. I planted 2 rows of beets, and I've probably in those 2 rows of beets got a dozen beets that have come up and are going to survive. And the same thing happened with carrots. I planted radishes and carrots together. We've got 1 or 2 radish plants still in here. We actually have had a very good radish harvest, but there are very few carrot plants that have survived, and you can see they're pretty dinky down there, and just a disappointment on those. But next to it I planted a packet of lettuce seeds that were intended to be broadcast. And there are 4 or 5 different types of lettuce, and so these are at the point about now where they're going to be able to be thinned out and thrown into salads to let the others grow. And that's doing fairly well. So of all of the seeds, those have done the best. Now, am I going to plant more? Well, I'm not. As you know, we came up here to Maine as an interim step to finding a home in Vermont, and we are in the process. We hope to be closing on our Florida home in a couple of days, and we have found a home in Vermont, and if all goes well, that will close in the middle of July. That's not very far away. We got 4th of July coming up the week after next, and then we're going to be pretty much there. So we may not even see some of these vegetables come to harvest unless we come back to Maine. Now, let me just mention one other thing here too. You can see this really fancy strainer pan hanging here. I had a problem where I had came out here several days in a row, and it appeared that something had been digging in the garden. And what I believe it was is I believe it was a red-tailed hawk that would come down and dust itself right underneath where that strainer pan is, because I found a big red-tailed hawk tail feather in the dirt, and there was a hollowed out area, and it wiped out one of the pepper plants and a couple of the broccoli plants. So we lost those. So I put this out as kind of a stupid scarecrow, but it's worked. We haven't had anything come back since. So anyway, we're not the only gardening act in town. My sister Carol lives just down the road, and she has a garden, among other things, at her home, a home that they had built. It's a little closer to the water than this location is, and so we're going to pay her a visit and see exactly what she's got going over there. So let's go. Every story that I've back with chicken pie. Crow, my chicken and crow, play, crow, my chicken and fly away, crow, my chicken and crow, play, I love chicken pie. So Carol, you've created all these gardens since you moved in here.
Yes, this was a patch of woods when we first started to build the house. And we were able to save some of these maples, which is nice. And as soon as I stuck my shovel in the ground, I discovered, I wouldn't say I discovered because I knew that I was suppressing it, that pretty much all the dirt here is solid clay.
And that's not fun to work with.
Plants don't like it. It's sort of like having their roots be encased in cement. So all the gardens here basically have been dug out bit by bit and replaced with better soil. And we've also discovered that there's a hill there and all the water comes right down to our house. Now the exciting thing is that we actually have not had, knock wood, a drop of water in the basement.
And you have a vegetable garden as well?
Oh, we have more than a vegetable garden. We have a farm.
Well, let's go take a look.
In front of me. I need to officially thank my big brother Craig for helping me rototill this. I believe only 1 week ago, or was it 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. So let me give you a walking tour. First we have the dump. Now this is a corner of the garden where I did not rototill because it has lettuce sprung from seed and some ill-advised mint that I planted 2 years ago and still trying to eradicate. Then we move up into the herb section where we have oregano, cilantro, parsley, sage, rosemary, dill, and basil, and 2 kinds of thyme. Then we move up to the nascent bush cucumbers. Now I've actually never grown bush cucumbers, so I'm curious to know how these will go. Then we have the climbing cucumbers. Then we move into the smallest number of tomato plants I have ever planted in my life. There are 7. Usually I plant 18.
Well, I started with 6, and I still have 6, so we'll see how that goes.
How much we get. And then I did plant several rows of zinnias here and cosmos up in the front, and I noticed this morning that the zinnias are being devoured by bugs. So we'll see whether or not they actually come up. So this is because I normally have a tendency to crowd things.
And then over here,
Then we go from the agricultural to the animal agricultural to the chicken coop. So let me demonstrate. You may note that there is a fortress-like effect here, and that is because we had something come and try in the middle of the night to gnaw into the coop. You can see the gnawing marks there, and under there, and under there. So this was our way of saying you can't get into the coop. I did have a time last summer when I came out, and there were not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 dead chickens inside the coop, which means a weasel got it. So the chickens have vacated the coop for the day. They are out foraging. But I have a chicken who has not let me gather eggs for several days now. And as you can see, there are quite a few in there.
that's an amazing number.
Yeah, I think that's 3 days worth.
Yeah, it looks like it's almost a dozen.
Yep.
Wow. And I can attest to how good the fresh eggs taste. And they're generally quite large compared to the so-called large ones the supermarkets carry.
Which is, the chickens are, 3 of them are actually, I think, 1.5 years old now, which is pretty much their prime laying time. One of them is not laying at all, and the other nasty one probably lays an egg every other day.
Yeah. And how do they survive in the wintertime? It gets really cold here, so how do they deal with that?
Well, interestingly, they tell you that as long as you have a place where they can be out of the wind, they're fine. And they are fine, and they even will sometimes, we actually snow blow a little area here where I can throw, get down to some bare earth or packed snow, and we throw sunflower seeds to get them out of the coop for part of the day. I do have like a 50-watt heat bulb that I put in there, but I think that's pretty anthropomorphic because they would be fine without it.
Cool. Oh, nice. Nice. Fun. And after your first struggle with the weasel, you have not lost any more, is that correct?
I don't think that's true. We lost one earlier this year, and it just disappeared, and that typically means a fox.
Ah, a fox, okay. Well, here's one guy right here.
Now let me see if, oh look, he's pooping for the camera. Definitely a ham. Let me see. 2 weeks ago, she's lying.
Wow. No. It was 2 weeks.
It was, but
Yeah.
obviously I didn't start with seeds.
Yeah. No, well,
And I'm really glad that I didn't, because I was so excited about growing flowers this year, and I'm really disappointed.
yeah, well, what I've seen with mine is that the things that were planted from seed have not done really well except for radishes.
Interesting.
Although I do have lettuce that was kind of a broadcast to be able to pick out 8 different kinds of lettuce and
And that's
thin them and throw into a salad, and that's doing okay. But everything that I did from plants, except for things that were damaged by animals, are doing all right. So
I just think, I mean, we haven't really had much but
yeah,
rain and cool weather.
yeah, it's been very cool. Yeah, I talked about that earlier. And
So
it's,
I'm just going to I'll let them just
all
do
right,
their thing, and if they grow, then they don't grow.
all right. Well, I certainly wouldn't mind having chickens at our place in Vermont. We've got the space for it. Once we get in there, 10 acres of land, right out in the middle of farmland and hills. It's a beautiful spot, and we'll get something online about that when the time comes. In any case, that's the latest in late June from Kennebunkport, Maine, in our garden. And I just want to mention that all of these videos are in response to the years and years of monthly garden videos from Mavin's Garden down in Pittstown, New Jersey. My brother-in-law Marv has been doing this for years, absolutely for years. In fact, I think he and I did the first ever garden video back in 1986 in Massachusetts together. And so he's been doing that on a regular basis, and I believe you can find them on YouTube. Marv Perk 3, I believe, is what you would search for. If that's not correct, I'll fix it when I edit this, but certainly worth looking at. Great knowledge, great gardens, big gardens, lots of fun things he's doing, particularly this year. So worth a look to see all the changes that he's made. Anyway, here's to you, Uncle Marv, and we hope to see you before too long. Nice to be back in the Northeast, and we'll see you somewhere, see everyone else somewhere down the line. Bye-bye.